There are over 600 distinct Amish settlements across 32 states, yet almost everyone names the same 2 or 3 when asked where the Amish live, leaving genuinely fascinating, centuries-old communities completely unknown outside their own counties. Palm trees line the narrow streets of Pinecraft, Florida, where Amish life takes on a form few outsiders would ever expect. The story begins in the early 1920s, when families from Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania arrived in Sarasota, drawn by a hunting trip and the promise of winter celery farming. Instead of sprawling fields and red barns, they found sandy soil and a climate better suited for leisure than agriculture. The settlement was officially laid out as the Sarasota National Tourist Camp, and by the 1940s, small cottages had replaced any hope of large family farms. Pinecraft remains Florida's only permanent Amish settlement. Here, there are no cows, no cornfields, and no horse-drawn buggies. City rules and the tight grid of the neighborhood mean residents and visitors alike travel by bicycle or large adult tricycle, gliding past pastel houses and modest churches. Every winter, the quiet streets fill with the sound of wheels on pavement as 4,000 to 4,500 Amish and Mennonite visitors escape the cold of the Midwest and Northeast. Some come for a season, others for just a few weeks, but all are drawn by the rare chance to experience the comforts of community under the Florida sun. Permanent residents number only a few hundred, but during peak months, the population swells with newcomers renting cottages or gathering at Yoder's restaurant for pie and coffee. In Pinecraft, the familiar rhythms of Amish life, church gatherings, handmade goods, and plain dress persist even as the setting defies every expectation. This is the Amish world without buggies or barns, where tradition adapts to palm trees, sandy soil, and the steady hum of bicycles. 1,000 miles from the Amish heartland, B County, Texas, stands almost alone on the map. In 1999, a handful of families left Tennessee and settled near Beeville, drawn by affordable land and the hope of building a new community. Today, their numbers remain small, about 75 people, enough for a single church district. The nearest Amish neighbors live in Clarita, Oklahoma, a drive of more than 7 hours across state lines. To the south, the Mexican border lies just 2 hours away, making B County one of the most isolated Amish settlements in the country. Distance here is more than a matter of miles. It shapes daily life, from sourcing farm equipment to holding church services. Survival depends on tight bonds and self-reliance, as the community endures far from the networks and markets that sustain larger Amish populations elsewhere. In Lawrence County, Pennsylvania, the Amish settlement near New Wilmington traces its origins back to 1847, when 9 families journeyed from the Keisha-Coquillas Valley and laid down roots in the rolling farmland about 20 miles east of Youngstown, Ohio. Unlike newer or far-flung colonies, New Wilmington stands as one of the oldest Amish communities outside the famous Heartlands. The Byler surname quickly became a fixture here, so much so that it remains the most common family name in the area, a thread of continuity stretching from the first settlers to the present day. Despite its age and steady growth, New Wilmington rarely enters the national conversation about Amish America. Its quiet persistence and deep roots challenge the idea that only the largest or most unusual settlements are worth remembering. Here, overlooked history is not a story of novelty, but of endurance. Kelowna, Iowa stands quietly on the western edge of Amish America. Its story beginning in 1846 with families who journeyed from Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. The settlement they founded became the oldest Amish community west of the Mississippi River, a fact rarely recognized outside the Midwest. Over nearly 180 years, Kelowna has grown into a hub of Amish life on the Iowa prairie, yet its structure is anything but simple. Today, two main Amish groups share the area, each with its own ordnung or set of church rules. One church district remains entirely independent, not affiliating with either of the larger groups. This internal division, rooted in mid-20th century debates over technology and church leadership, means that Kelowna's Amish live side by side, but not always together. In this town, the boundaries that matter most are drawn not by geography, but by conviction. In the southern reaches of Michigan, the Amish story takes on a distinct accent. Camden and Reading, two small towns in Hillsdale County, owe their Amish roots to a wave of Swiss immigrants who arrived in the 1830s. These families came not only from Switzerland, but also from Alsace and the Montbéliard region, carrying with them traditions that set them apart from the more familiar Pennsylvania Dutch communities. Their names, Graber, Girard, and others, still echo through the church directories and gravestones of the region. Here, the Swiss Amish built a world that looks and sounds different from the Amish settlements most Americans imagine. The open-top buggy, a rare sight elsewhere, remains a fixture on local roads. Wooden grave markers, hand-carved and simple, mark the resting places of generations. On quiet evenings, the haunting sound of yodeling sometimes drifts from farmhouse porches, a living link to the alpine valleys their ancestors left behind. Cultural distinction, however, did not mean isolation from the outside world. In 1965, Hillsdale County's Amish schools became the center of a legal battle that reached the Michigan Supreme Court. The state required all teachers, including those in Amish schools, to hold official certification. Amish families argued that their own teachers were not only qualified, but that their students regularly outscored public school children on state tests. The court ultimately sided with the state, but the case brought rare public attention to the academic achievements of Amish educators and fueled a wider debate about religious freedom and educational standards. Hillsdale's Swiss Amish have held fast to their heritage while navigating the demands of modern law. Their story is a reminder that Amish America is not a single culture, but a mosaic, each piece shaped by language, custom, and the quiet insistence on doing things their own way. Before the name Napanee appeared on any map, Amish families were already breaking ground in the northern Indiana prairie. Their arrival in the early 1840s set a quiet pattern of farmsteads and meeting houses long before the town itself was officially platted in 1874. When the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad cut through the area, it didn't draw the Amish in. It simply crossed a landscape where their community had already taken root. Over time, tracks and roads sliced through fields, but the settlement continued to grow, spreading across 4 counties: Elkhart, LaGrange, Kosciuszko, and St. Joseph. Today, about 5,000 Amish live in this region, their presence woven into the countryside. Yet Napanee's deep roots are often overlooked, overshadowed by the even larger Elkhart-LaGrange settlement just 30 miles to the east. Here, the land remembers a story that began before the town, before the trains, and before the outside world ever took notice. Mist drifts along the floor of the Kisha-Coquillas Valley, but the real dividing lines here are drawn in color. Big Valley, stretching nearly 30 miles across Mifflin County, Pennsylvania, is home to one of the oldest Amish settlements in America and to 3 groups that share the land, but rarely the same church bench. Each group claims a distinct identity, and you can spot the difference before a single word is spoken. The buggies rolling down these country roads are marked by their tops, white, black, or bright yellow, a palette that maps the valley's social landscape as clearly as any highway sign. The Nebraska Amish, known for their white-topped buggies, are the most conservative. Their ordnung forbids indoor plumbing and limits technology to a bare minimum. Neighbors call them the white toppers, and their buggies are often the plainest on the road. The Reno Amish, sometimes called Peachy Amish, travel in black-topped buggies. Their rules allow a bit more comfort, maybe a second suspender, perhaps a little more leeway in daily life, but the black canvas on their carriages is a badge of loyalty as much as a practical choice. Then there are the Byler Amish, whose yellow-topped buggies are unique in the Amish world. The color isn't for show. It's a living marker of a split that traces back to 1849, when disagreements over church discipline and technology sent families branching off from the Lancaster County Amish. In Big Valley, these colors are more than tradition. They are identity, boundary, and often the first thing a child learns to recognize. Affiliations run deep, shaping everything from worship style to the number of suspenders a man may wear. The Valley's patchwork of buggy tops offers a rare, visible map of Amish diversity. A reminder that even in a place known for its old ways, difference can be right out in the open. Overshadowed by its more famous cousins, in Lancaster and Holmes County, Big Valley stands apart, quietly insisting that Amish America is far more varied and more vivid than most outsiders ever imagine. In the rolling farmland around Etheridge, Tennessee, the Schwartzentruber Amish have built a community known for its uncompromising conservatism. Since the 1940s, about 250 farm families have settled here, making Etheridge the largest Amish settlement in the South. Technology is pared down to the barest necessities. No electricity from public lines, no indoor plumbing, and strict limits on farm equipment. Clothing is as plain as the fields. Dark fabrics, broad-brimmed hats, and homemade garments set apart even from other Amish groups. Outsiders sometimes call Etheridge the Amish Mecca of the South. But unlike the tourist crowds in Lancaster, visitors here arrive in a steady trickle. Day trippers and wagon tours come to see a way of life that remains largely unchanged, but the core identity of the community holds firm. Etheridge stands as proof that even under the gaze of curious outsiders, tradition can endure without compromise. Hopkinsville, Kentucky stands as a testament to the ongoing story of Amish settlement in America. Founded in 1989 by families from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, it was the first Amish community in Kentucky created directly by such a migration. At first, life centered on traditional farming, echoing the familiar rhythms of the Pennsylvania countryside. But as the years passed, new opportunities took root. Many residents turned to carpentry, forming crews that traveled for building projects, while others expanded into produce farming to meet local demand. This willingness to adapt has helped Hopkinsville grow steadily, now counting over 300 members. The settlement is part of a much larger trend. Kentucky now hosts more than 4 dozen Amish communities, each with its own story of adaptation and survival. Hopkinsville's path shows that Amish America is not frozen in the past. It continues to change, expand, and find new ways to thrive. Hidden among the ridges and hollows of the Missouri Ozarks, the Amish settlement in Shannon County began quietly in 2006. The land here is rugged, far from highways, and even farther from the gaze of most Amish researchers. Over the years, the community has grown to 2 church districts, with an estimated 185 members. Steady numbers for a place so remote that even seasoned Amish watchers might miss it. Daily life follows the strict Schwartzentruber ordnung, with little room for modern conveniences. Much of what the outside world knows about Shannon County's Amish comes from the persistent visits of a single photographer, who returned again and again to record moments of work, worship, and family. His images offer rare glimpses, but the settlement itself remains elusive, its story told in fragments. Here, obscurity is not a byproduct. It is part of the place's very identity. On the far northern edge of the American West, Salmon, Idaho stands as a quiet outlier on the map of Amish settlements. Founded in 2012, this community is Idaho's only Amish district, nestled just outside a town of about 3,000 people. Here, the rhythms of Amish life unfold against a backdrop of pine-covered mountains and the vast Salmon Chalice National Forest. The town itself sits on ground once traced by the Lewis and Clark expedition, adding a layer of pioneer legacy to the landscape. With only around 60 Amish residents, the group makes up a tiny fraction of the local population, barely 2%. Idaho is one of just 6 states with a single Amish settlement, a fact that underscores how thinly Amish America can stretch at its outermost edges. In Salmon, the presence is less a community than a foothold, quietly persisting where few expect to find it. In 1910, the promise of a new beginning drew Amish families west to the plains near Ordway, Colorado. The move was fueled by the efforts of a local realty company, which marketed the region as a fertile river valley, ripe for farming and community life. Brochures described a planned market town, Dayton, and the groundwork was laid for a thriving Amish settlement. A minister was recruited, signaling the seriousness of the venture. For a short while, hope took root in the dry Colorado soil, but the optimism did not last. The water, which settlers relied on for drinking and farming, carried invisible danger. Within months, typhoid fever swept through the new community, traced directly to contaminated wells. Families fell ill. Some lost loved ones. The outbreak, paired with inadequate plumbing and the harsh realities of the Western environment, made daily life not just difficult, but hazardous. The settlement never attracted enough families to reach the critical mass needed for a lasting Amish congregation. Without a healthy, growing membership, the community unraveled almost as quickly as it had begun. Historian David Luthi chronicled the Ordway story in his book, The Amish in America: Settlements That Failed, from 1840 to 1960. Ordway appears there among dozens of other Western experiments that ended in disappointment. Luthi's research reveals that these failures were not rare flukes, but part of a broader pattern. Water shortages, disease, isolation, and the absence of a strong support network made the American West a risky frontier for Amish settlers. The collapse at Ordway stands as a sober reminder. Not every dream of Amish expansion could survive the realities of the land. Yoder, Kansas, stands as a quiet testament to the staying power of small Amish settlements. Founded in 1883, Yoder is one of only 3 Amish communities in Kansas that have lasted more than a century. While its population remains modest, about 200 people, its story is woven into the larger fabric of a state where Amish numbers are still under 3,000. Unlike the larger, more visible settlements in Pennsylvania or Ohio, Yoder has endured without fanfare, serving as an anchor for generations of families. In recent years, Kansas has seen new growth, with 8 additional Amish communities established since 2017. Through decades of change, Yoder has held its ground, quietly proving that even the smallest settlements can outlast the odds and continue to shape the landscape of Amish America. Tucked into the hills of Garrett County, Oakland, Maryland stands as a quiet record of Amish endurance. Founded in 1850, it is Maryland's oldest documented Amish settlement, a single church district that has persisted for more than 170 years. The community's location in far western Maryland places it well outside the spotlight cast by the larger Pennsylvania and Ohio settlements. Unlike the sprawling, multi-district expansions found elsewhere, Oakland's structure recalls the earliest Amish migrations, small, tightly knit, and shaped by the landscape of the Allegheny foothills. Even today, the settlement remains modest in size, separated by nearly 150 miles from the nearest Amish neighbors in Pennsylvania. Its survival offers a rare glimpse into the pattern of early Eastern settlements, where families carved out a life on the edge of the American frontier and left a mark that, though easy to overlook, still endures. Across 684 church districts in 32 states, Amish communities continue to quietly reshape America's rural landscape in ways most of us never see. The real Amish world is far stranger, more varied, and more resilient than the postcard image suggests. Which settlement challenged your assumptions the most? Their hidden histories still unfold, shaping the country in unexpected ways. Subscribe for more stories that reveal what history leaves in the shadows.